and really thank you for joining us.
Mhm.
I'm sure every club member and every other representative at the club will be like flattered that you came in. So, like my friend said, Kadir, we represent a game development club at Yıldız Technical University located in Istanbul. And we also have made a few games from our
cool.
club. Yeah. We have 2 games, I think. We have a game called Dystopia, which should be a puzzle game, if I remember correctly. And we're still working on more games. So for I like to introduce myself. So can you introduce yourself, because some might not know your name or doesn't remember it correctly.
I'm Sandy Petersen. I've been doing games since 1980. From 1988 through 2012, I did digital games. I was part of the team that made the first Civilization. I did most of the levels in Doom and Doom 2. I was one of the designers in Quake. After that, I went to Ensemble Studios, and I worked on the Age of Empires series. Some of the projects in that I was the lead designer on. Some of them I was an assistant designer, but I was on all of them. Also Halo Wars and Age of Mythology. In 2009 to 2011, I taught college, actually, to master's degree students about game development at Southern Methodist University. So I did have some experience with the college, and now I'm doing tabletop board games again. So that is my history. You can see more about me. I mean, if you do a Google search of me online, you'll see a ton of stuff. I have a Wikipedia page. In fact, the Wikipedia page is kind of funny because when I first got it, when I first found I had it was 2010. I went into it, and what had happened is I'd given some of my students a grade they didn't like because, I mean, they'd earned a bad grade. And so they'd gone to my Wikipedia page and edited it, basically saying I was a terrible teacher. So then I found out that you're not allowed to edit your own Wikipedia page. So I couldn't fix it. But the next semester, the students that semester loved me and they fixed it for me.
Nice. So anyways, I'd like to ask a question, rather a personal one, if you don't mind. So you seem to be like in a lot of different genres, like studios, etc. Like you started university for zoology, if I remember correctly. Then you went on for fantasy games, D&D, etc. Then Doom and video game software. Then, like in early 2010s, you started your own company, right?
Yeah, it'll be 2012.
Yeah.
I started Petersen Games, and it's still around. You can go to petersengames.com and buy my stuff, my games. So they're still available. Yeah, yes. I have moved around a lot. In the 1980s, I worked at Chaosia, mostly doing tabletop role-playing games, like Dungeons and Dragons. I didn't do Dungeons and Dragons, but games like that. And I became famous for having done the game Call of Cthulhu, which is a horror role-playing game, which won awards. I also won awards for doing the Ghostbusters role-playing game. Then I moved to computer games, where I said I worked on Doom, I worked on Quake, I worked at Age of Empires, and got awards then. And then in 2012, I started doing tabletop board games, and those have been extremely popular and well-liked. So I've kind of made a mark in tabletop role-playing, tabletop board games, and computer games. The only thing I haven't really done is card games. So, but I have I doubt I'll ever do one, but
So you were the first to treat H.P. Lovecraft's work not just as a horror stories, but as a system compatible with game mechanics. When designing Call of Cthulhu RPG, how did you decide to implement the sanity mechanic?
Well, what happened is that I was trying to make the game seem like Lovecraft. This is a common thing for me. I try to make my games match their theme so they feel like what you're doing. Like in Doom, I want you to feel like you're in a space station overrun by things from another dimension. It's dark and creepy and there's weird sounds. And in Call of Cthulhu, I noticed that in Lovecraft stories, when people would see the monsters, they would often go insane, or they'd panic, or they'd faint, or lose control of themselves. So I wanted to put that in the game. And when I put it in, I thought it would just be like another weapon for the monsters. I mean, they could attack you, or they could cast spells on you, or they could like drive you insane. But when I actually put this into play, the first time I used the sanity rules, when I said, okay, there's a door opening in space and the monsters coming through, then one of the players said, I run away. And another player said, I'm covering my eyes. Another one, I'm going to the corner, turning back. They acted, I didn't expect that. Because if you're playing a regular role-playing game like Dungeons & Dragons, you would never not want to see what's happening. You'd be watching carefully. But in Call of Cthulhu, because of the sanity rules, the players were acting like they were afraid, like their characters were afraid. And while I didn't expect that, I was smart enough to know, okay, this is really cool. Players acting like they're afraid, because no one's ever afraid in a regular role-playing game. They don't even act like it. So that was I kept that and doubled down on that, and that became a really useful tool in the game.
Yeah, I mean, like people started to use the sanity mechanic in a lot of games, other than fantasy games, etc. Like, for example, Don't Starve, if you heard about it. So if your sanity is low, literally shadow monsters start to hunt you, etc.
That's awesome.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. Anyways, what other abstract human emotion would you try to turn into a game mechanic? Like, for example, a person is hot-blooded, so like he gets onto a fight even if he shouldn't. Like, the player controlling it doesn't have the control.
Well, I mean, I did a game called Evil High Priest, a board game, and in that game, when you have cultists, and when they go too insane, then they can't do work for you, and they have to go to the asylum, and you have to break them out, and it's a pain. I remember back in the early 90s, there was a game called Gahan Wilson's Haunted House, and this game was interesting because when your character got cursed or went insane, it affected the game. Like, for example, you might have the colors might change, or things would scream instead of making them. You couldn't hear anyone talk because they were just screaming. Or if you tried to click on an item to pick it up, it would instead teleport away. So I thought that was an interesting way of adding insanity or curses to a game, and I tried to do it in some of the games. I also one of the things I did is I like it when the players feel they're in control, and they know what they're doing, but they still feel like there's like, for example, in Doom, one of my classic moves was I would put a pillar in the middle of the room, and on top of the pillar there's some kind of treasure, the BFG or a soul, some really useful thing. Then I put a spotlight on it, and there's nothing in the room but that. And the players look at that and they say, well, if I go get that, monsters are going to teleport in and try to kill me, or a secret door is going to open. And they know that, but they still feel impelled to go and get it. So they feel they're in control, but they're going to get jumped by a bunch of monsters.
So you're known for level designs full of traps, monsters, closets, nasty surprises, especially in Doom 2. Some designers today hold the player's hand too much. Do you believe a game designer should be the player's guide or their playful enemy?
I mean, I don't want the players to be frustrated when they're playing the game, but I don't mind giving them trouble. I want them. The goal here is that whenever a player is killed in the game, I want him to feel like he was killed because of his own action. I don't want him to feel that he failed because I cheated in some way. So, I try to have the player kind of do what he wants, and then when he's when he's just stopped or defeated, he says, okay, I'll try it again. This time for sure I'll make it. You know, kind of like when you're playing Super Mario, sometimes the jump is so hard, you got to get the exact pixel, and it just feels unfair and it's a pain. And sometimes you feel like the jump was fair, you just didn't make it, and you keep trying until you do it. And I don't want to do the first kind. I don't want you to feel the game designer is to blame. I want you to feel you were to blame. And so I try to give you a lot of power. If I was to railroad you through something and give you lots of hints, then if you fail, it's my fault. But if you do whatever you want and it's an open world, then when you fail, it's your fault. Or if you're playing a co-op game, not co-op, a head-to-head game, PvP, like Doom or Age of Empires, then if you fail, it can be the other player's fault. I don't mind if you blame him.
Lovecraftian horror relies on the fear of the unknown, but today players have wikis, YouTube guides, and data mining. How can you design mystery and fear in an age where players can find out everything about a game in seconds?
I think that it's really hard to do with a video game because of the fact they can all look it up and go onto YouTube and see the answer. I think it's easier with a tabletop game. They have those secrets because usually the analyses of those are more like, this is a good game, or this isn't a good game, or this is a fun scenario, and they aren't trying to give you the spoilers. But video games, yeah, there's all these guys trying to give you spoilers constantly. So I would say your only hope is to not watch those things, or only watch them when there's some specific problem you faced that you can't get through, that you think is the game designer's fault and not yours, and then you can look it up. But I can't really complain about there being lots of online stuff because, of course, my games are played. I mean, look, Doom was the first game that did a lot of head-to-head online play. That changed. Before Doom, games were all solo. You just played on your own and didn't play with another person. After Doom, every game had to be head-to-head. Age of Empires was also head-to-head. That was after Doom. But it's so much more fun to play a real-time strategy game or a shooter against another human instead of a monster. And I'm happy to have been a part of making that a thing. But of course, that also solves the problem, because if you're playing against another human, then there's no online trick to how to beat them because humans are suspicious and evil. But if you're playing solo against the game system, then yeah, those spoilers can ruin the game for you. One solution possible is that not everyone reads those, so you can kind of well, at least some of the people are going to get it. I have no what else to say. It is obviously a real problem for a mystery game, especially. It's tough, and of course that's been one of the problems for the Call of Cthulhu online games, which I didn't do. I just other people did on use a game, is that they're all, because Call of Cthulhu is a mystery game, not a combat game, then there's all these it's obviously a problem.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of depends, but I find it inevitable because back in 80s, if I remember correctly, there were a specific telephone line for NES games. If you failed in a level and you're really stuck, you called the Nintendo line and asked them, how do I get this?
I actually did that for Zelda 3. I was stuck with one of the monsters. I said, what are you supposed to do? And they said, oh, well, you have to kill the red head, then the blue head, then you kill the middle part. And I go, okay, got it. Now that I know it's possible, I can go back and figure it out. But yeah, that was kind of an interesting thing. But having an online help like that, when you find something that's blocking your progress, I don't mind if players do that. They want to play and enjoy the whole game. They bought the whole game. They deserve to play it. So getting help for one particular point, I'm sort of okay with. But having your hand held all throughout the game, I think ruins the fun.
Anyways, old school shooters like Doom put players in a trance-like flow states, pure action. Modern games often interrupt this flow with cutscenes and scripted events for the sake of the story. Have you sacrificed the joy of playing for the joy of watching?
Well, I remember I gave up on playing Final Fantasy VIII because everything was a cutscene, and then there was a railroad of encounters, then another cutscene. At first, when Valve first did Valve's first Half-Life, when they did Half-Life, I was like, oh, they have cutscenes. Those are cool. What a great idea. And so we thought that was brilliant, but they weren't very long yet, you know. And I do think that having these long scenes can interrupt play in a weird way. And part of the reason for them is that a cutscene is really easy for a game designer to script. And so it serves as like, you can do this instead of making the adventure more interesting. Let's do a cutscene. And I think it's sort of a crutch that they rely on.
Yeah, but like there were like some games in the past, like Earthbound, where the narrative is literally the game. Like you learn the monsters' lores, the enemies' lores, etc. In midst of the fighting or playing.
Yeah, I mean, there's talking in Earthbound. It doesn't really have. I mean, the cutscenes are very few in Earthbound, and they're pretty rewarding. It's stuff like seeing the Runaway Five do their dance on stage. That's pretty cool. You know, you've done all this stuff working for the Runaway Five, and so Earthbound gives you the cutscenes as a reward, not to explain what you're supposed to do next. I think maybe that's the way to do it. If the cutscene is something you get because you succeeded and it's cool, that's better than if the cutscene is like, in other words, it's not blocking you from going on to the next stage. You're getting to see the cool thing you earned by beating the level. And maybe that's the way to do cutscenes. Have it be a reward instead of an obstacle. I want to get on with the game. I remember when I played World of Warcraft back in the day, there was all these libraries of books you could read, you know, and then you find that, and there was quests where they'd give you a wall of text. Here's why I need you to get 12 hot wings for the goblin. Here's the whole backstory. And I would just skip over that stuff. I would never read the books. Why would I want that stuff? I want to go, I'll just go get my 12 hot wings for the goblin, you know. But I know some people like it, but I think it is the antithesis of what's fun. Look, I wrote the story for Doom, right? And it is not very deep. It's like you're on a space station, there's monsters, and you have to fight them. What more do you need, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's the problem with a lot of Hollywood movies too. I don't know, did you ever see Green Lantern?
Yeah.
So the first half of the movie is Hal Jordan not wanting to go be a superhero, and it just drove me crazy. I said, what the hell? Why am I watching a movie about a guy that doesn't want to be a hero? Skip this part to where he's the hero. We don't need this crap. It really annoyed me. And it was amazing that the villain Hector with the giant using the head, he was more interesting than the hero because they kept having the hero being reluctant. Oh, I don't want to be a superhero. I said, this guy's supposed to be a test pilot. Not a wimp. So Hollywood does it too, and that was an especially bad example. But you know, you just want to. I want to get on with the fun part. I don't want to go. Don't want to do the angst backstory part. And maybe that's just me. And there's people that love the backstory, and there probably is. But I am, not one of them.
I mean, I think there's more people thinking the same. Like more than the other half,
I
more
think you're probably right.
Yeah.
But the problem is that a lot of the people that are in games, okay, they are not the developers. They aren't even people that play games. They're like the bosses over the game thing. They're the producers and the managers. And so when they play a game, they want their hand held because they don't know how to play. And they want to understand what's going on, and to show off a game to them, you would do that cutscene, and the guy would say, "You must go on this quest to find the orb of doom." They go, "Oh, I understand what this game's about now," and that's for them, not for the players. But it stays in for the players. Then the players get this stupid thing. They don't care about the orb of doom. They just want to go fight the monsters. But the bosses need to see those things. So they're doing things for these bosses that are not in the game's best interest, but the game can't get produced without them. So it's sort of like this obstacle you're forced to face. I think that is kind of the issue.
Yeah. In competitive gaming, everyone is obsessed with perfect balance, but your games often embrace chaos and wild abilities. Is an unbalanced game actually more fun than a perfectly balanced one?
Well, I think a game needs to be perfectly balanced, because if you're going to be for two reasons. First, if you're going to play the game a lot, you're going to notice imbalance in the game. You're going to realize that no one ever uses the plasma rifle because it sucks, or whatever the thing is, and the other thing is that people are going to go online and they're going to post about the game being unbalanced. They're going to say, "Oh, never build horse archers in Age of Empires. They're not any good. They're 2% less good than skirmishers, so you shouldn't make them." And of course, the average player would never notice that 2% difference. He would just play the game. But he listens to this guy. Oh, he knows. I'll do what he says. And then they're missing this whole part of the game in which horse archers are better, because they're listening to the guy online. So I actually work really hard in making the game balanced. Chaos is fine, and chaos can affect the outcome. So, for example, when I was balancing, I did all the balance work for Age of Empires. Okay, the Age of Empires 1, Age of Empires 2, that's my balance work. That's one of my jobs. And so, if I'm doing the game and I find out that, and people will go online and say, well, the Byzantines don't get their economy going fast as quickly as the French, so they're a worse civ. But the average person playing the Byzantines will never notice that 2% difference, and it'll be mostly determined by how well you do tactics. I mean, the average guy playing Age of Empires is likely to leave a bunch of guys sitting around like idle after their farm gives out because he didn't think to go back in time. So that is a way bigger cause of a loss than some economic bonus. But the top level players say, oh well, Byzantines is worse than Franks, or Ottomans is better than Franks, or whatever it is, and then people want to go play that. I would rather people play it because they want to be the civ that appeals to them. I have a German friend who only ever will play the Germans in Age of Empires 3 because he thought it was cool. And I imagine that you have people in your group that always want to be the Ottomans, because why not, right? But it's what am I trying to get to here? I'm saying that play balance is important to me, but I realize that on one level, the average person will never notice that balance won't really affect them because their play level is going to be more average, and so the little imbalances in the game won't really have much of an edge. But if you look at my game, Call of Cthulhu Wars, my tabletop game, it has really non-symmetrical factions that don't play anything alike. So if you're playing Cthulhu against the crawling chaos, they just operate differently. They have different goals, they have different techniques, and that makes the game really fun, because when you play it, you say, well, I think the game's balanced, and when I play crawling chaos, it's a whole new game that I didn't get to see before, and I think that is that adds to the game's fun. It means the game's more replayable.
So you work both on Age of Empires and Cthulhu Wars, which one is historical and the other is mythological. So which might be the harder to design? Because history, you are limited by the reality, or mythology, where you have infinite freedom but need to make up your own internal logic.
Well, there's two. They each have an advantage and a disadvantage. The advantage of history is that people are interested in history, at least usually a little bit, and it's cooler to be the Ottomans in a game, with all the courage and the horror, and like they did terrible things, right? But they did amazing things too. So you kind of want to see the Ottomans in action. And if I make up like the Blimini for some fantasy game, like you have no expectations of what the Blimini are like, but the Ottomans, you have expectations. You want to see the Janissaries in there with their muskets. You want to see their giant bombard cannons. You want to see their horsemen charged into combat waving scimitars. And with the Blimini, you just don't know anything. The disadvantages is that if you're doing historical stuff, you have to kind of match history. You can't do whatever you want. So you have to make things seem authentic. If you're doing the ancient Greeks, they got to have long spears. If you're doing the ancient Romans, they got to be swordsmen. And you can't just do anything. So that's the thing there. And one of the things that made Age of Empires so popular is that everyone thought it was historical. Okay, and obviously we're making it for fun, not for history. But the fact that there was some historical elements made the game more fun to people. Now, the advantage of a fantasy world is that you can do whatever you want, right? And go crazy. But the disadvantage is no one cares about your fantasy world. So I always try to do fantasy worlds, or I usually, not always, usually try to do a fantasy world that is based somewhat in a concept that's known. So, for example, when we did Age of Mythology, okay, it's fantasy, but they're the Norse, they're the Greeks, and they're the Egyptians. So they're real myths that people are familiar with. When you're playing the game and Odin shows up, you're like, oh yeah, well, I don't know what Odin would do in the game, but I know he's this cool god, so I want to do things with him. And also with a lot of my games use the Lovecraft mythology. And you may have no idea what the King in Yellow does in Lovecraftian terms, but he's going to be creepy and interesting. And if I'm able to make him different enough from Cthulhu or the Crawling Chaos, then you're going to have fun playing them. And you're going to feel like you're playing something authentic, even if it's just all stuff I made up.
So you worked on many projects like Doom and Age of Empires, which are immortalized. People still play Age of Empires religiously. I can't even put it into words. People really still love Age of Empires, and many players have 3,000 plus hours on them. So what might be the key feature to make a game immortalized,
Okay. I think the key features to make a game immortalized are you must have the game be fun from the very first moment people are playing it, with something striking they'll remember. For example, in the original Age of Empires, I was watching a guy at the E3 conference walk by our booth, and we had an early version of Age of Empires. And he walks by and just glanced at it, and he saw a lion on the screen attack and kill a gazelle. And he was like, this game has lions killing gazelles and stuff? I got to get this game. And that's all it took for him. Games are about interesting decisions that matter. Okay? You want to have choices and you want to have them matter. So you don't want to have to the first 10 minutes of the game, I got to follow exactly this build order. You want to have different things you can do. So that's my key to making a game that's memorable. Interesting things you can do. As far as making it a big hit, I'm not sure. A lot of the games I've done have been big hits. Kind of the very first game I did, Call of Cthulhu, it's still being published worldwide. So maybe I'm too close to it to understand what I'm doing that makes it work. But I think the interesting decisions that matter and the topic that entices people are the two clues. Oh, here's a really important thing. I don't do games for a mass audience that everyone is going to kind of like. I do games that I want to play. And I figure there's enough people who are weird like me, they'll want to play it too. It's better to make a cult game that a few people love than a big sprawling game that everyone kind of is okay with. And that's my clue. When we made Doom, we didn't think it would be the hit it was. We thought it would be played by a few people, but those people really liked it and spread it everywhere. Same is true of Call of Cthulhu. The same is true of Cthulhu Wars. So whenever I make a game to be really fun for a small elite group, it spreads out and everyone likes it. And I think that's the secret. When you make a mass market crap, then even the mass market doesn't like it. And I've had people come and says, you should make this more mass markety so everyone can enjoy it. And I say, no, I think that will limit its scope. I don't think they'll want to play it. You want to play a vanilla game. You want to play a game with lots of interesting stuff, right? Whether it's gore or action or whatever, you want to see the goods. And that's a secret. Make the game you want to play that you think other people will want to play. and have interesting decisions that matter. That's my 2 takeaways. How's that sound?
I mean, I completely agree with you, by the way. So like people, yeah, like when you make a game for like all ages and like all people, like people might like it. It might be a really big hit.
Everyone kind of likes it. No one loves it.
Yeah, exactly. So like, for example, I will give Mario as an example. Everyone likes Mario games, but like there aren't many people like play it like religiously, like
well, Mario now is seen like a vanilla middle of the road thing, but originally Mario wasn't that way at all. It was really weird. Why is there a plumber in a Japanese game jumping on turtles? It was this bizarre combination of stuff. It was just weird, you know.
Yeah.
And so it got its foothold in the mass market because it was the flagship of Nintendo, but it didn't start out as a logical game to be a success. And also, for every Mario, you have something like Pikmin. Pikmin's weird. It's a bizarre game. I would love to have heard what happened in the meeting when Miyamoto pushed this game on the Nintendo other owners, saying, we want to do this about little sprouts in a garden. But Pikmin's really weird and really specialized, and that makes it interesting and fun.
Anyways, in Doom 2, while John Romero often aimed for more realistic architecture, your levels were known for being more abstract, experimental, and full of gimmicks. In today's era of ultra-realistic graphics, do you think there is still a place for that kind of abstract mechanics first level design?
Well, I mean, part of the thing was when I was doing Doom, there wasn't such a thing as a level designer. We'd never heard the word. I mean, I guess I was one of the first level designers, but we didn't have that word. We just like did our games, you know, and so we weren't sure what we were supposed to do. And there's a lot of designers nowadays. Level design is like a whole job where you learn how to make interesting architecture. I didn't have any of that stuff. I didn't know how to make architecture interesting, so I just made these weird. I just had ideas like this level is going to be shaped like a hand, or this level is going to look like guts everywhere, or this level is going to have a billion monsters and traps. And I like traps. I like tricks like that. I like them because when a player figures out a trap, even if it takes them 1 or 2 tries, okay, he feels smart. And making the player feel smart is rewarding to the player, and it makes them like your game more. I don't want the players to think that I'm smart. I want them to know that they're smart. So I've seen designers who try to show how smart they are. Look at this clever level. And I'm like, why do you care what they think of you? You're going to get paid the same anyway. Have the players like themselves. So I guess that's kind of my approach, that the players should feel that I figured out this great trick and no one knew it but me, you know. But of course, everyone knows it because everyone figures out the same trick. But they still feel smart that they figured it out. So when you're playing my level Tricks and Traps in Doom 2, which is the room that has 8 doors that each go to a different horrible place, when you figure it out, you feel pretty smart. That said, I wouldn't have minded having someone helping me on those levels who was really good at architecture to make them look beautiful, because my levels are famously not beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I always thought,
I think they're fun to play anyway, you know.
I always thought about Doom's levels as like it doesn't need an architecture, because like the point is like there's a Doom guy and he shoots down devils. Like, what more do you want from the game? Like, I always thought about this. It's like this.
Here's the thing. Again, there's the issue of when you're showing it to the higher ups in your company, they don't play the game. So if you have a beautiful looking level, that's what they like to see. Oh, this looks like a cathedral. It's so beautiful. Whereas, for example, Tom Hall would do levels, and Tom Hall's a good designer, don't get me wrong, where he carefully sculpted in shadow. We didn't have real shadows in Doom, but he would sculpt in the shadows so the room would look all lit up by a spotlight. Okay, I never bothered to do that because it doesn't affect gameplay at all, you know. Yeah. But if someone looking at the game or taking a picture of the game for review, look at this awesome level with the spotlight art. But if you're playing the level, my level might be more fun or might not. Who knows, right? But it could be more fun. And the higher ups and the journalists won't ever know, because all they care about is what they can see. So I guess that's a weakness of mine. Maybe I should have tried to make them look better so that I would get more people to say they were good. But I also know that sometimes my levels were frustrating for players, like the chasm in Doom 2, where you have to walk through those little narrow things and fall down. Oh man, I got a lot of hate mail over that. But but you know what? I didn't care, because I also got some people saying, "Oh, the chasm's my favorite level. It's so cool." I don't care. I don't care that it's not beautiful and that I get killed. It's so much fun. And again, I'm going for the have a level that some people really like, because the people that hate it, they won't play it. They'll go on to do something else, and they'll have fun doing that, and that's fine. But if I have some people that love it, that's what I want.
You had a massive influence on the monster designs and atmosphere in Quake. In an FPS, it is often hard to scare a player who's holding a big gun. How do you find the balance between making the player feel empowered and making them feel afraid?
Okay, so some of the ways I do it is I try to make the players feel that there's something up ahead, that they don't know what it is yet. So, for example, when you start level E2M2, the warehouse, it's not called the warehouse, it's called Refiner, but it's in Doom 1. Okay, and you start it, you're in a big warehouse full of boxes, and as soon as you fire your shotgun, you start hearing imps going, snarl, 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 a lot, and you go, oh my gosh, this place is full of monsters, and you don't know where they are and where they're coming from, and that is fun. When you see a giant door open and suddenly like fireballs come shooting at you, you're like, okay, this is going to be scary. This is ominous. I don't know when it's going to end. And I guess it's fear of the unknown that lets me do it. I like to do things like when you're going down a hall in Doom and you see a carving on a wall of something terrifying, then you know that to signal something there. For example, when I did episode 2, where the cyber demons at the end, when you're going into that level, there's dead barons of hell who were the boss of the first episode hanging on the wall, dead ones. So you see something this year that's so terrifying, it killed the boss of the first episode, and you're going to meet it. And so that, I think, helped make players feel ominous. It's when the actual monsters come, you don't have time to be scared. You're shooting and dodging and running around and trying to pick up health. But before the monsters come, when you go into the level and you're like, and the lights are going dim, or the floor starts falling away into lava or something like that, that's when you're able to scare the person.
Yeah. I mean, when I see a big door, I just say, yeah, this is a final boss. So yeah, I kind of agree.
But yeah, and if I often will have an area that, for example, with the level I told you about, I've done this a lot, where I have the little pedestal with a BFG or something on top of it, and then there's nothing in the room, and you know there's going to be something in that room in a few minutes, and that is ominous, and it makes you worried and suspicious, but it also is fun when it happens.
Yeah.
I mean, no one ever refused to pick up the item. They knew they wanted it. I guess if you're down to like 10 or 15 health, you might run out and heal up, then come back. But even that is like preparing for and not knowing what's going to come. What's going to come in here after me? Is it going to be one giant monster? Is the floor going to fall away into lava? Is there going to be a whole bunch of little monsters? Who knows? And so there's that unknown.
You pushed the technical limits of the Doom engine back in the day. Today we have engines like Unreal Engine and Unity with seemingly no limits. Do you believe the absence of technical constraints liberates creativity, or does it actually make it harder to be creative compared to the limitations you faced?
I think not having limits. I have always pushed limits. I always want to have less limits. I always have more freedom. So I'm in favor of having better technology so I can do all those things. Like when I was doing the AI for Age 2, and let me be clear, the artificial intelligence I scripted for Age 2 has been completely replaced by Microsoft by now. But the original stuff, they gave me, here is your script. You can have 1,000 lines. And I immediately said, I need more than 1,000 lines. Okay, you can get 1,500 lines. I need more than 1,500 lines. So you can get 2,000. Finally, I got up to 3,000. I think eventually I was 5,000 lines. I just needed more and more and more to do what I wanted to do to make it fun. And so, for example, there's the level in Quake where there's the jumping black monsters that fill the level. There's hundreds of them, and the players are just like overwhelmed, and the frame rate gets really choppy and crappy, which I did not expect. So people hate that level. But I would have much loved to have the level be. I always hated the constraints myself. I know some people think that it gives you some power to have those constraints, but I always wanted to have as much freedom as possible, because the real constraint is like in your head, and that's the one I want to work with.
About strategy and game theories. So in Cthulhu Wars, the factions are completely asymmetrical, yet the game remains balanced. In Age of Empires, civilizations were much more symmetrical. As a designer, do you aim for the perfect mathematical balance, or do you prefer the fun chaos of asymmetry?
I like asymmetry a lot. It has kind of made my name. When we were doing Age of Empires, we thought we were being asymmetrical. And then in Age of Empires 2, while we're like the game StarCraft comes out, and that's, oh wow, that's asymmetrical. And we were so jealous of StarCraft that when we did Age of Mythology, it was specifically an imitation of how StarCraft had done it. So we have really different civs. So I think the more asymmetry, the better. And the reason is because with more asymmetry, like I said, if you play the game with a very asymmetrical game, and then you play the game again, but from a different viewpoint, it's a whole new game. Everything's new. So it's like 10 games in one. Instead of like when you're playing Age 2 and you play the Byzantines or the Persians or the Chinese, yeah, it's different, but it's not that different. You still have a lot of the same things you're doing. You have to adjust it to an extent, and there is an appeal to that. But yeah, I've been going more and more asymmetrical as I've gotten older, and I've kind of hung my hat on that. It doesn't mean there's not a place for less symmetrical games, because of course there is. But I've kind of gone all in on the asymmetry.
So about Petersen games. So with Petersen games, you had massive success on Kickstarter. For independent developers or students who don't have big publishers behind them, what is the single most important rule for building and maintaining a community?
Well, I think in my case, I had three things going for me that not every designer has. I was well known in the community and generally well liked and trusted, and that helped. It was about a topic that I was very well known for having introduced, Lovecraftian stuff. And the first people that played the game immediately loved it. They went to play it because they trusted me and they liked Lovecraft. Then when they played it, they would do reviews and like, this game's the greatest. I love everything about this game. And so that obviously helped spread it. So I guess the secret is do a game that you think some people will love. I've gone back to that. Yeah. And what will happen is the people who love it will put reviews online that are crazy about it. And the people who don't love it probably won't even play it. So you won't see their reviews. So you'll see the online people that love your game because they're the ones that wanted to play it. So it needs to be good for them. I've seen people play some new game that's on a topic they love. I've done it myself, and then I hated the game. You've done that, So the game has to also fulfill their desires.
So it's like a pack mentality, I guess. Like one person reviews the games, like relax it, and like the other who like turns their back on that sees the review, then like that guy loves it. It must be a good game. Like it's like that. Yeah.
And then if you go into it, like for example, say your friend says, you got to see this movie. It's so awesome. You're going to dig it. And then you go in to watch it, all excited to see it. You're going to start with a positive attitude towards the movie. And even if the movie isn't perfect, you'll generally be in its favor. Let me give you an example. Did you ever see David Lynch's Dune movie that he came out with in the 80s?
I think I did, but I'm really not sure. I need to like...
So it's pretty terrible, okay? but I went to see it with my dad. And my dad is a huge fan of the Dune books. Okay, so he's sitting there next to me and he's all excited to see a movie about Dune. So he says, Sandy, look, there's sandworms. Sandy, look, it's this. And so he didn't care the movie was no good. He was just so excited to see those things on the screen. So it made me like that movie, even though objectively it's not good, because of his enthusiasm. And I think someone else's enthusiasm can carry you into a game to enjoy it. You know, so maybe the best way to get someone to love Doom, for example, is for your first game with them to do it co-op, where they're playing along with you. Most people don't know this. Doom has a co-op mode. No one ever plays it. They always play solo.
I never did know.
But it has a cooperative mode. Yeah, and we didn't know how people were going to play it. Nobody had ever played head-to-head games before then. We thought that nobody would play head-to-head on Doom. We left the rules for it in because we liked doing it. There's an example. We did what we liked doing, thinking other people wouldn't, but it turned out everyone did love it, and it changed the game industry forever, you know, head-to-head games. But yeah, that was there because we liked it, and the enthusiasm, I think that's why people like watching Twitch streamers and stuff. They see someone playing a game, and they're like, I mean, that doesn't interest me, but I understand why people are like, look at this guy playing the game. He's having so much fun. If I play it, I'll have fun too.
True. Yeah. The last questions are like from our club members. So, okay. What is your favorite project that you worked on?
Whenever I take on a project, I try to make it my favorite project for that time period while I'm doing it. But I think the project that was starting to become the most favorite that I really was excited about doing was the project codenamed Titan in the last years of Ensemble Studios, which was entirely canceled when Microsoft laid us all off. But Titan was going to be a massively multiplayer online game set in the Halo universe, with players being the Forerunners and the Covenant and all these quests. And I was in charge of all the lore. So I had all this stuff written up and of course, if I'm doing the lore, it's not going to be some guy doing cutscenes and stories. It's going to be exciting action and twists and turns, you know? So I was really excited for doing that, and then it got canceled. So maybe I shouldn't get too wedded to a project. That said, another project that went really well was when I was doing Cthulhu Wars. It was kind of at a hard time in my life. I just had a big failure in a business venture where I lost like $50,000 and times were tough. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try this Cthulhu Wars game. And I did this game out of the blue. And of all the games I've done, that game flowed so smoothly and so easily, and just like appeared. And I think it was prayer that did it, that God actually blessed me to let that game be effective, because after I working on it, I had a little bit of that I played it with some friends, and one of my friends says, how long have you been working on this game, Sandy? And I didn't want to admit it had only been 2 weeks, so I said, oh, a few months. And he said, it seems really polished. I was like, whoa, okay, I've never had a game work that fast and be that smooth. So that was a great experience. And of course, Cthulhu Wars proved to be the foundation of my company. Everyone loves Cthulhu Wars, so, and you can get it at my website.
Wow.
You can also get rules and figures and essays from me on my Patreon, which is Sandy of Cthulhu.
Yeah, we probably would put your links in the description video, probably. I think. Yeah.
But I provide STLs of figures, so you can get like cosmic cloud monsters and space dragons and all kinds of stuff. Anyway, what's the next question from your?
Okay, so is there? Pardon me. Are there something that you made in your career and regretted it later? If so, what is it?
I regret not going all the way on my game Hyperspeed in 1991. I was doing it, and there was a lot of pressure to get it done early and to cut it short, and we didn't really have the technology to properly, totally do it. So I always felt that game, while it's still fun, didn't have all the impact it could have done later on.
And the last one is kind of interesting. So, You have designed countless monsters and scenarios. If you had to choose one monster from your entire career to be your bodyguard in real life, which one will be the one?
Well, Cthulhu, of course. Cthulhu is what I started my game career with. He's the one that makes me all my money. And look, I do have a Cthulhu here.
Oh.
See?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So,
I mean, it figures, not gonna lie.
and I also have these. These are made by me. You can actually buy them from my...
Oh. Nice.
This is the Cthulhu from the game Cthulhu Wars, and this is the Cthulhu from Planet Apocalypse as one of the final bosses.
Damn.
It is, in fact, not the biggest figure we've made, but, you know, it's big.
Yeah. I mean,
We got known for making these giant, oversized figures, and that was part of the appeal. And, of course, they're all paintable, so some people like to paint.
I mean, I would probably choose Demogorgon from Doom, I guess. I also have a plushie of it, but...
yeah.
I also have
Demogorgon from Doom? Doom 1?
Was it
Cyber Demon?
The
Cyber Demon?
The round demon, wasn't it? Demogorgon?
The Cacodemon. We called him a Cacodemon in English. I don't know what they do. What they call him.
Anyways.
But the round floating ball?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the way he looks. I really like that monster.
Yeah, same. I have had a plushie of it, but it's not here, unfortunately.
I got to put him in the first level he ever appeared, which was Doom E2M1, where you first see him. You're in this room full of halls and monsters, and suddenly the Cacodemon comes floating out from behind a pillar and starts shooting at you. And like, what the heck is that?
Yeah. Anyways, that was all. We really appreciate you tuning in with us. We really enjoyed the interview today. Thank you for everything, and I'm pretty sure that everyone in the club who watched the video really enjoys it. You really gave us all of your spirit today, so we really appreciate you today. Thank you for everything.
You bet.
And we will send you the links and probably put the links of your Patreon, etc., into the description.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So long.